Hey, people got together, put 3,500 hours in of working to clean it all up. And when we got done, Jesus came down in person and gave us his blessing for us to be here. And I knew people would think that was sketchy, so I actually got his signature.
Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the 402 and Out podcast. I'm your host, Connor Wiesman, and with me today, I have the delight to interview Chad Peterson, who is the founder and current owner of Sozo Coffeehouse. Chad, thank you very much for joining me today on this episode. One thing I like to get off the bat is how, when I contacted you, you said you like keeping a low profile. So it was not a for sure yes or for sure no. You'd give my podcast a look, and then you give me an answer the next day. You text me back the next morning. You're like, Connor, I think we should do this interview. So I really appreciate you spending your time with me and then allowing me to share your story on this podcast interview.
Yeah, it was great listening to some of your other podcasts, and I thought, it's a good fit for us. So
thank you again with that. So with all that being said, for those who don't know what Sozo Coffeehouse is, this coffee house is located in downtown Omaha off of Jones Street, correct?
Correct, 13th and Jones.
Yep, and then this has been around since 2014, 2016.
The coffee shop sure has been, yes.
But before this was a coffee shop, it was a ministry before, as in like this was founded by a ministry. So I want to go back in this time, go in this time machine, go back in time. I want to know how all this began.
Sounds good.
So I'm all ears and just ready to listen to how this all started.
Okay. Well, and I'll correct something right off the bat.
Please do.
When you said, it's like the founder of a ministry and owner of a coffee shop, in reality, the coffee shop isn't owned by me.
Okay.
It's actually all part of the ministry side of things. So it was founded through me leading the ministry and all that. So I'll give you a little bit of the background of the story.
Please do.
So, yeah, the reality is, when I was in college, I had some people mentoring me. My faith is super important to me. And so when I was in college, I had some guys that spent some time doing these things called Bible studies. And it'd just be like investigating my faith and trying to understand what I believed. And when I graduated from college, I got a good corporate job working for a really great company called Hormel Foods. And loved what I did, and I thought, maybe I'll pour back into some people. And so I had a house, and I had like 8 guys live with me, and I said, you guys can live with me super cheap, as long as maybe once a week we just do a Bible study together. A little bit of discipleship, investing in them. Next thing you know, there's some girls who joined, and before you know it, there's lots of people wanting to come to these Bible studies. And I went to a big church. It was fine, for me, but it was, I just kind of started realizing we were grabbing people from all sorts of little churches. And the next thing you know, they come to our Bible study, then they'd come to this big church. Well, in the big picture of Christianity in itself, for every big church that starts, there's 4, 5, 6 churches that are smaller that close. I was like, well, that's just not a great plan. What if we could just be a place where people could come and maybe come from lots of different faith backgrounds, maybe churches that didn't have as many people within that 18 to 35 bracket. They could come, be encouraged, live life a little bit together, but then go back to church where they could maybe make bigger investments. So that was my passion, and I didn't intend to start a ministry or anything like that, but what do you know? That's kind of the direction it was. And when you think about people who are 18 to 35, and you look at our city, it was like, where could we possibly meet that would reach the most people? Well, down here in the old market, it's about 97% of the people are 18 to 35, no kids, and are single. So that was one thing that started letting us think, where's the direction we would want to go. And then, we also looked down here because, when I get towards the business side of things, you always look to see how many other businesses are around that are similar to you. But for ministry-wise, there was just nothing down here. No churches. The only thing that was ministry-wise was helping to feed the homeless. There was some homeless lines that were down here. So no churches, no ministries. And really starting to go, wait a second, this is the heart of our city. This is where our education systems are located, our legal systems, our financial systems, our media, the arts, the entertainment. So all of these things are located down here, and yet there isn't anything that was faith-based, Christian faith-based at least. And so that would all led to saying maybe we could start something down here in the old market. So that's the beginning of it.
So what I think is so unique about Sozo Coffeehouse is I shared with you my experience. I was done doing a podcast interview. I drove past here, and I was like, "Wait, I've seen this on TikTok. I have time to burn. I'm gonna check this place out. It seems pretty cool." So I go downstairs. I order my coffee. Well, first I go downstairs and I hear a big bang, and it's the pool table that's going on. That's right when you walk in, and I had no idea what it was at first. And I looked over. I'm like, "Oh, there's a pool table. Cool." It's in some coffee houses, maybe not all, but that was unique right off the bat. Got my coffee and I'm looking for a place to sit. I go into this big open area. I look to my right. There's a big stage, venue stage, and then I look to my left, and there's study rooms, conference rooms, and then tables everywhere. And I'm like, this place looks awesome. And then also, it was like on was it in April or May? I think it was like towards the end of the school year for the college students, and there's a bunch of college students just locked in on their laptops, getting homework done, getting studying done. I'm like, this looks like a really good place to study. So I just want to know, how are you able to get this basement?
Yeah. Well, you find the area that you want to go into, and everything around here seems to come out of, we started wanting to find a good location for a ministry. Out of that, we came down into this old market area. It didn't always look like it does today down here in this basement. I had some pictures, wish I could show everybody the pictures of what it used to look like. But there was an old bar down here called Buffoons, and some of my pictures show just how kind of rough it was. Everything down here was painted black. The way I found out that there is even a bar down here was we did our very first outreach as a ministry upstairs of this place, and we did a big swing dance. I'm really passionate about dancing, love to do that sort of thing. And so we did a swing dance upstairs. We were going, is this a good fit for us as we're trying to reach more people? Down in the basement here, there was a band called Sin that actually was playing that night, and it's a local Omaha band, and Sin was unloading their equipment. Some of our girls helped them bring it down, and we were like, hey, why don't you come upstairs and learn how to swing dance? Well, Sin was like, that's not really our thing. But by the time as they got downstairs, they saw how kind of grungy it was. They were like, well, maybe we'll hang out upstairs. And so they did. They came upstairs and hung out. And at the end of the night, we were processing, is this a good location to try to reach more of the college-type students? We had 200 people off the street coming in to learn how to swing dance. And we had Sin, who was playing in the basement, but they were upstairs. And I got a chance to share the gospel message, which was a big part of what I'm always hoping to do. And so we were like, this is a good location. So we didn't think about starting a coffee shop. Again, I didn't think about starting a ministry when I started a Bible study, but it just sort of developed. So we were meeting upstairs. These rooms that we're meeting in now, we've got 8 little living rooms that are super wonderful. They used to be old freezers. And so we would only use this section of the basement. The other section was still that bar. Eventually, we got a really great opportunity to take over the lease, and boy, there was a lot of work to be done. This place was just rough, and this is the fun part about it, is that there were so many people who saw the vision for what this place could be someday, that people just donated time and energy and resources. We had about 3,500 hours of people just coming down and working nights and weekends. They'd be like, what are you doing this weekend? You want to go scrape paint off of a wall in a basement somewhere, or maybe tear down an old freezer? So, yeah, it was a lot of sweat equity from other people who saw a vision for maybe what could be down here.
How long did that renovation, scraping walls, and the people volunteering, how long was that? 6 months, a year?
Boy, it was probably about 2 years. 2-year process of just from getting down here, starting to map out the plans to finally. Well, and this is a fun part about the story, and it'll stretch some people in their faith, is I told you there was sin in the basement when we first got started, and hey, people got together, put 3,500 hours in of working to clean it all up, and when we got done, Jesus came down in person and gave us his blessing for us to be here. And I knew people would think that was sketchy, so I actually got his signature. The city inspector's name was Jesus, who came down and gave us the final inspection. So maybe not the Jesus everybody was expecting, but still kind of fun things. I always say if you're going to spend 3,500 hours working in a basement, if God doesn't have a sense of humor, you're in trouble. So
I mean, that it's crazy how this all kind of started, as you said, started with a band called Sin, kind of kicked you guys off, got eyes on the building and on the ministry as you preached after. And then when this was all done and the inspector came, the inspector being named Jesus is kind of funny.
it is, yeah.
So you've had this has been going on as in like the coffee shop. I think I asked you this earlier. So when did the coffee shop or coffee house open to the public after all the renovation and all
Right.
that?
So it was a number of years. If you knew more about the old market, across the street from Sozo has developed a great deal over the years. But around 2014, there was a condo that went up. And it used to be there was an abandoned car wash right across the street. So even though we would come down and use the space as a ministry during the week, we almost always had to have security outside. The cobblestone outside was something you could just pick a brick up off the road and throw it through a car window, snag a purse, whatever it was. We had all kinds of problems with that because there was a huge homeless encampment that was at that car wash all the time. And so it just wasn't the greatest place. We had the place built out, and it was set up for the ministry. But part of the passion that I had was going, I think there's lots of churches today that have amazing buildings. Then they're pouring millions of dollars of resources into those. And then they're open for 2 hours on Sunday, maybe a couple hours on Wednesday. And, I'm always like, is that really the best use of kingdom money? And here we were sitting on a wonderful place that could be used by so many others. But it just, like, how do we get the doors open? So when that condo went up back in 2014, it was like, this would be a great time to open this place up as a coffee shop. And that's where coffee started to come in. But if I give you a little background on me, I don't actually like coffee. I at that time, I was still working for a big company. So I'm running the ministry on the side, and do I really want a coffee shop? So I prayed with some people on our team and said, hey, we've got a great location. This would be a great time to open it. And by God's grace, I went out mountain biking with a buddy of mine named David, and I get into the woods, and he's like, hey, Chad, I'm a UNO student. I love missions. I love coffee. Have you ever thought of opening that place up as a coffee shop? And I was like, David, we're going to go back home and open a coffee shop. And 2 weeks after that conversation, we opened Sozo at the same time as the condo opened up across the street. And I guess the rest is history. So,
When you opened Sozo, was the stage and all these study rooms and conference rooms already here, like in use for students studying or whatever they wanted to rent these rooms for?
it was. So the Sozo itself replicates what our ministry started as. You used to come into a house that I had that you go into the basement, and I had a pool table. Now we have 2 pool tables. And so people would hang out, they'd play some pool, and then I had a big screen TV, so maybe we would play something that we would talk about later, and then we'd head up to a living room, and there would be a living room in that house, and there were some neighbors that opened up their houses, and so we had different living rooms, and that's where the Bible studies came in. So if you walk into Sozo, you still have that platform. You have now multiple gaming area with 2 pool tables, foosball. Then you walk into a big area where there's a stage and all sorts of things can happen, and then you have all these living rooms. So Sozo was already established the way that it was. So the only thing we really had to do was make sure that the coffee was on par and that we were, staffed to make it happen.
What does Sozo mean?
Good question. And that's kind of the 2 elements. I always want to let people know is even though, sometimes we think faith and we go like, oh man, what does that mean? Well, Sozo has 2 different definitions that we use. And one is it's a safe place. And the other one is salvation or to save. So for our side of things, there's still 2 elements of everything we do. Sozo as a coffee house is a safe place for absolutely everybody. and everybody uses it. I love the fact that you just see the diversity in here all the time. We just love everybody. But then, for me, the ministry side is still hoping to reach more people and help them to find salvation.
Is downtown Omaha still considered an unreached community when it comes to faith?
Yeah, that's a great question because I still do. Matter of fact, I have one on Friday of this week, and almost every week we have a prayer walk that takes place, and we work with Christ for the City International, and we work with some other missions organizations, and people will come and just walk down here, and the reason is because it still is very much an underreached. We're blessed to have another. It's not a coffee shop, but more like a cafe called The Table that's down here. Love partnering with those guys when we can on different things. But otherwise, it's pretty bleak as far as Christianity down in this old market area.
Why the old market instead of like the riverfront or the Capital District why specifically the old market in downtown Omaha?
Again, when I do that prayer walk, I'm taking people from here, and within 2 blocks in any direction, there is major influences in our culture that we can be a part of. I just met with somebody yesterday with Good News Jail and Prison Ministry, so we've got the Good News 2 blocks away with the jail. I've got lawyers that are in our ministry that are helping people through some of those things. Of course, you have all sorts of different communities that are down here. Right around the corner from us, the LGBTQ plus community is very active down here. There are sometimes a lot of walls built up between faith and that community. We have, of course, the news. I mean, there's so many things that are happening down here that are absolutely center. We have an $11 million project across the street from us that's all part of the arts community, Lawrence and Gardens coming in and planting $11 million of flowers and plants. So all of these influences, and I think that we need to have a faith element down here that's trying to make a difference in it.
I also want to go back to Sozo Coffeehouse, like that story later, but I want to get to know you a little bit. So where did your faith come in? You don't have to share like your testimony, but how did you find your faith? Maybe it is kind of a testimony.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I shared something that with some friends yesterday, is that I think we can't forget our roots. Sometimes people come to faith during maybe difficult times, and then things get going good, and they kind of settle back into maybe their old habits or old ways, or maybe they just put their Christianity in one compartment of things. I feel like my faith started in high school, and some great stories there of how that all took place. I didn't understand there was differences of religions. I just came to hear about Jesus and the good news that he wanted to bring into my world. And boy, I recognized that I was a pretty wretched person at that time, and I could use a friend, I could use a savior, and he was there. But then it was really when I got to Omaha that I felt like he was calling me to even more. That Christianity isn't something that we just say, that's my religion, but it is really about a relationship with somebody that you walk with every day, and it's a lifestyle. People say, hey, because you're a ministry leader, maybe you have these certain boundaries. And I go, well, actually, I think we're all called to be leaders as if we're Christians. And so, I'm sure if that answered it. But
yeah. Did you grow up in a Christian household?
No, I didn't. Yeah, well, I'll share real quick my story. So when I was in high school, my family had gone through a number of marriage divorce situations. We moved an awful lot. It's hard for me to make friends, so I was a little bit on the rebellious side, making some really bad decisions. And, I talked to a God that was out there. He was kind of my best friend, but there was no moral compass. I might be maybe taking something that wasn't mine, and I never heard a voice that was saying, maybe you should put that back. I was more like, hey, God, look out for me, make sure I don't get caught. So I didn't catch this right or wrong, and one of my buddies invited me on a ski trip, and on this ski trip, I had a great time. I didn't have any ski equipment, so I honestly stole everything out of the ski shop, and I met a girl. I had a really good time, and I thought that was pretty cool. Church was pretty awesome. And the next year, a different friend invited me on his ski trip. And on this ski trip, I walked onto the bus and I was like, how the hell's everybody doing? And people were like, hey, why is he using the H-E-double-L word? And I was like, these guys are weird. I don't know what's going on. They kept talking about this Jesus guy. And I thought, I'm just going to get through this ski trip, have a good time. But somewhere in that trip, they started talking about the message of Jesus Christ and recognizing there was a great video that shared about people being up at the gate and wanting to know whether their name was in the book of life. And I had to really stop and ask myself, was my name in that book? And people that I loved, were their names in the book of life too? And so that was a pivotal moment when I realized, wait, there's a faith out there, and I want to make sure I'm part of it.
What motivated you to get into ministry?
Yeah, you know what? I was on a trip with another college group, and we went down to Worlds of Fun. And one night, they were all really nice, but they were kind of a little cliquey. And I was outside of this motel, and I was laying on the steps, and I was kind of just talking to God and going, hey, God, I'm not sure this is a good place for me. I think, everybody was nice, but I felt like they all had friends already, and I was like, there's really no reason I shouldn't be connecting, but I just wasn't. And I felt God was saying to me, he doesn't speak to me in an audible voice, but I kind of get an impression. I felt like he was like, that's fine. You can go someplace different. But then I had this little moment where I felt like he was saying or. And whenever he says or, I get a little nervous because I'm like, oh, what is that? And I kind of felt like maybe it was like, or I could stay and make a difference. Sometimes we go into faith communities and we're like, oh, they weren't very friendly, or they weren't this, or they weren't that. And I'm like, okay, maybe we're there to be the solution. So I was like, all right, I'll get up the next morning. And I got up the next morning and I started going around trying to find people who maybe looked a little bit more like me, who weren't completely connected. And honestly, before you knew it, I went from nobody in Christianity to becoming a leader in Christianity, probably too soon. To be fair, I was pretty rough at the start, but just by loving people and finding those people who are on the outside, ministry just started to come my way. I kind of think that was probably my calling into ministry.
I guess age-wise, for context, how old were you at this time?
I was probably like 22, yeah.
And
yeah.
before you were 22, what did you see yourself doing, as a career? Were you...
Well, so my father was really successful in the food industry, and I went to work for Hormel Foods, and I had no doubt that I was going to run the company someday, money and success. I was very good at sales. I loved my job. And so, yeah, that's definitely what I thought. I had no thought of ministry, no thought of coffee. No.
So, Sozo, you're not, as you said earlier, you're not the owner or the founder. It's founded by the ministry.
Right. I've just been the director, and I'm the founder of the ministry, and so I'm the founder of the coffee shop. But it's not a source of, it's not a financial thing for me. It is just a passion, a love for other people. And so it is a nonprofit, so.
And that's called Great Adventure Ministries, correct?
Yeah, that's kind of the umbrella that we started under. And now it's all, it's just Sozo Coffeehouse, Sozo Ministries. Everything is Sozo.
So outside the Tuesday night Bible studies, you also do the prayer walks. What else do you do ministry-wise outside the coffee house for the Omaha community?
Sure, and if you're ever in the coffee shop, you're going to see some of these things on our big screens. We have volleyball every Thursday night, and then we have events throughout the week. This last week, there was an event with Blue Bench that was down here. It was kind of a bit of a trivia night. So there's we took a float trip on Saturday down the Elkhorn River. We just came back from Colorado in June. We took 18 people out there to go whitewater rafting, did some kayaking, some cliff diving, some just adventure stuff. I still am a big adventurer.
Was that always a passion since you were a kid? The adventure, nature stuff?
Yeah, so that ski trip for me
The
was
first one or the second one?
the second one. I became passionate about skiing and about adventure, and because I found God on that trip, I was like, it's been a passion for me to get other people onto trips, because I feel like even in our Colorado trip, 16 of the 18 people shared testimonies that were just incredible. Of what God was doing in their lives and in brokenness, and how God's healed and how God is working to heal them. So I definitely feel like adventures is a super big part of my life. Through skiing, I've skied 5 continents now. I've heli skied in New Zealand and in Canada, and I have skied with some amazing skiers. So like it just all, the adventure came out of my recognition that God loved me, that he created the great outdoors, and I don't know, I find him out there all the time. So
2 offside questions.
Sure.
You said earlier you don't like coffee. So what are you drinking right now?
I'm actually drinking a protein drink.
Okay.
That has it does have some cold brew in it, but it's masked nicely by some protein as well as a banana and some peanut butter.
Because we were ordering together earlier,
Yes.
and then you said in this interview that you're not a big coffee guy, and that caught me off guard. So
Yep.
that's good to know for
No.
context. And then second, since you bring up how you skied at 5 continents, do you like pay attention to like the ESPN X Games or the Winter Olympics or anything like that?
I do love the Winter Olympics for sure. Yep, absolutely. I don't get to as much because I am a father of 4 and running a ministry and a lot of other things that are going on. But it's amazing how far those things have come. So
When they're on, I'll watch it, obviously, because the Winter Olympics is every 2 years. And then, I mean, when Shaun White I specifically remember when Shaun White, I think his last Winter Olympics was like 2020, 2018, something like that. And that was a big deal for America back in the day. So back in the day, it was only like 8 years ago. But still, no, I just want to get off topic for a little bit.
No, that's okay.
Back to Sozo. I want to talk about the Bible studies. So online, when it talked about the Bible studies section every Tuesday at 7, correct?
yes, yeah, people show up about 6:30, and people are playing pool, hanging out. Everybody gets a free drink, so that's pretty attractive around here. And then we go into our small groups and stuff like that. There's probably, last night, we're averaging around 70, I suppose, people. Lots of diversity, which is one of the wonderful parts about Sozo in general, is the diversity. It's in the heart of the city. So you've got north, south, east, and west, and people are coming from all those different communities. I always say there's a Baptist, a Catholic, and a Lutheran, and they walked into a coffee shop. You're waiting for the punchline, and I'm like, they just came for Bible study. And so it's wonderful to have that kind of diversity.
So my question with that is, how do you welcome new people coming in with either different faiths or no faith? Whether it's like, as you said, a Baptist, a Catholic coming together, or like someone who's like Mormon or Buddhist coming in, or someone with no faith at all. How do you welcome those type of people?
There are a lot of intentionality on the leadership side of things and communicating how and why we do things. In any of our small groups, we can have very different opinions on maybe something not political, but like on baptism. Somebody's like, hey, you had a baby, you got to get it baptized. Somebody's like, hey, no, you got to baptize the baby as an adult. And somebody else is like, you need to be baptized by the Holy Spirit. The spiritual questions that people are wrestling through. And I'm like, we just say, let's listen to each other and let's point each other back to, allegedly, we all read the same Bible. Believe it or not, all the faiths that are Christian, they're using basically the same text. So where are you getting your beliefs from? Share that with us. It's not a think tank where we're just communicating our thoughts, but we really want to back it up with what the Bible says. And sometimes you can understand where people are coming from when you slow down just a little bit and you listen to the verses. It doesn't mean I agree with everybody, but I grow a lot in my own faith by hearing where other people are coming from.
Are there ever like Bible study nights where it turns into more like a debate rather than listening to each other because you're like so passionate into a certain topic?
Well, That goes back to the sozo and the safe place part of things. I really try to make sure we don't. I mean, sure, sometimes you're going to have some debates. There's always a good debate. There's a difference between a debate and an argument. If somebody wants to debate whether or not, an infant versus an adult should be baptized, those aren't bad to have. It's when it becomes an argument. But we really cut that off of being like, hey, we need to be respectful. Let's share each other's opinions. Let's make sure we're listening. And it goes back to the sozo. To be a safe place, sometimes there are people who come in who maybe have an agenda. Maybe they were burned by a local church or a denomination, and so they've got a little bent, and they want to communicate that. And I'm always like, this isn't the place. We don't talk about, gosh, those Baptists, they're always dunking people underwater. We just say, hey, there's some people who believe in baptism as being really important. Because just because you had one experience with one church doesn't mean that all churches in that denomination are going to give you the same experience. So let's not generalize people by categorizing them.
I like how you said sometimes people do come in with the intention of of spreading an agenda. So my next question is, how, like, you're a leader, how do you, I don't know how to word this. Like, there's like there's biblical truth where it's like there are certain answers to certain topics, but some people like to misinterpret that purposely, as in like for example, people who claim to be strong believers in Christ, they're like, oh, I understand like gay marriage and this vibe, like read this part of Leviticus. That's how I interpret it. That's how I take it by word. And then someone's going to disagree. How do you, as a leader, this kind of goes back to the debate thing, or like the argument thing, rather than just listening. Like when you're like watching this, how do you step in? Do you let them have their conversation, or how do you let that roll out? Does that make sense?
Well, it does. I always go back to show me where you're coming from on this. Is there moments when I can say, oh, I think you're taking something out of context? I have the right, just like anybody else should have the right, to be able to communicate why we believe what we do, especially because we're a Bible study. But you need to do it through the context of what we're reading. And I get all kinds of different people that are in our ministry. And it's a safe place for absolutely anybody to come in. So I'm always slowing things down to be like, I appreciate your thoughts on that. Can you show me that text and help me to understand it? Does anybody else see that text differently? Sometimes I have to pull people aside, and that's the hard part. If I could go back even to the coffee side, is it's a safe place for anybody. But what happens when somebody comes in and they've drank a little too much and are crashing on our couch, or they're disrupting other customers? We have to say, in order for it to be a safe place, there are times when I have to ask people to not be present or to change their behavior so they can be present. And so that's probably the hardest part about my job, whether it's ministry or even coffee, is I'm always that bad person who has to come alongside somebody and say, hey, I'm sorry, but you can't hand out little tracts that say something that we just don't. That doesn't keep us safe. It is a safe place. So yeah, it's kind of like the no soliciting. It's like you got to be the person who says you just can't go around doing that.
I love talking to my guests about time management, kind of like what we talked about earlier. So you're a ministry leader, you run a coffee house, and you're a father. Mm-hmm. How do you manage your time with all three of those big tasks on a daily basis?
Well, and let me say, there's nothing. I've only been married for 5 years. Come this October, first time ever married, and my wife had 2 boys that came in on that, and now we have 2 more. So I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And life is crazy. And
Can you repeat the ages one more time?
Sure. I have 12, 10, and then a 3, and those are my boys. And then I have a 2-year-old daughter, and they're my joy. There's nothing I want to do more than just spend time with them, which, when you're doing ministry and you're really doing most of that through just donated time, you're always like, where do you manage it? And I'm trying to find that balance, but I do have a pretty good balance of it. I spend a lot of time with my family. Ministry is a lot of times nights, coffee shop, we're very unique because we're open till midnight on the weekends and 10 o'clock during the week. And so, your little kids are sleeping during some of those hours. So if there's an emergency or something, I can manage the time a little better.
Do you see yourself as an entrepreneur?
Yes. I mean, I suppose I am through doing these things. And I do some things outside of it. I have some houses and things like that. So just to try to keep, it's like the Apostle Paul, he wanted to not be a burden to a ministry, and that's always been my goal, is to not be a financial burden to a ministry. So my wife and I try to donate our time to the things that we're doing the best that we can.
So I kind of want to go back to the study room and conference rooms because I think that's so unique about this place. You said these were freezers before when you guys were renovating.
Yep.
So what gave you and your partners the idea of like, okay, let's make these into study rooms? Like, was that someone else's idea? Was that your idea? Can you share the story behind that?
No, I mean, okay. So each of these rooms represent a living room, which again, that was the idea, was we just wanted to have a Bible study in every room. And for the most part, we fill up most of these rooms through those things. So when we tore out the freezers, we used to use the freezers as small group rooms. I mean, when we first got started, they were old freezers. We'd throw some chairs in, and that's where we would meet for some of these Bible studies. That was before we took over the whole basement. But yeah, that was the passion behind it. And if I could go to talk about Sozo, and sometimes there's these two, and they work very well together. But Sozo has a coffee shop. Setting aside all the ministry side of things, if you walked in here, you wouldn't have to believe anything. You wouldn't have to think it's anything other than a great coffee shop. And that's one of the ways we make it safe. And because it's a safe place, we have over 70 different organizations. This is something I really want to boast on my team that's here. Because they're here, because they make the space available, over 70 different organizations use us every single month, most of them every week, to do things like foster reunification, mental health groups. We have some of the largest AA groups in town with a great amount of diversity within those groups. So all kinds of things happen simply because we decided to open our doors one day.
Wow. The stage, that's also unique.
Yes.
Was that always there? Or did you guys add that in?
Nope, that's the same stage that Sin played on. We repainted it over time, but it's really just the same stage. And now, I mean, yes, we've got some great artists that have come through over the years.
Can you name some? That's going to be one of my questions.
Man, yeah, I am so bad at that. Remedy Drive was one that started in Lincoln, and they became a national band, and so they were here. And I don't know, we don't do as many bands as we used to. There's just a lot of technicalities within some of that stuff and copyrights and all these great questions. But there's open mic nights almost every weekend right now, and we do some karaoke. Lots of different things going on that stage as we just try to reach more people and be a safe place in this old market. The old market can be a little nerve-wracking for some people who aren't used to the urban environment, because at night is very different than the day down here. And we just want it to be that kind of safe place for people to be.
So when it comes to people performing on stage, my question with that is, what's your philosophy on music, lights, and the layout of the stage to create that underground delight vibe? Does that make sense?
I suppose so. I feel really blessed that I've had a lot of good people around me. I mean, even if I could tell you the coffee shop, there's as much as I don't like coffee, I've definitely come to know and understand and be a little bit more of an expert on coffee than you might imagine. But I have a great team. And we have a great team on sound and lights. A guy named George comes in, and he does a phenomenal job of making all those things happen. Chris, the manager of ours, is what really makes this place go as a coffee shop. I get to stay on that big picture. So, we have boundaries that we set to keep it a safe place. Like, we don't want profanity and that sort of thing happening. It needs to be a family-friendly. And we define that because nowadays, what's family-friendly? To one family, it's this. To another family, it's that. So we have some contracts and things like that when people do things to try to make sure that we're all on the same page ahead of time.
How often is that stage used?
Oh, it's used at least a couple times a week for sure. And then you mentioned, the conference room, the big area. We have all kinds of birthday parties or, graduation parties, all sorts of things like that, baby showers, people using the space. So the private events is definitely a big thing. It's hard to find a safe place where families can get together and do things indoors. We got a lot of great park systems, but Sozo's kind of that one place that people can go to gather with some friends.
How has Omaha changed since you opened Sozo?
Well, to be fair, when people would come up to the coffee bar in the past and I would be up there working, they'd say, "What do you do in Omaha?" I said, "Well, there's two things that are good in Omaha. There's the zoo and there's the airport, so you can go somewhere else." So now, though, I have to say Omaha has really developed the communities and then the sub-communities. I mean, the park system downtown is just second to none. I love it. So, we've brought in a lot more, even the sports side of things. Love having, some professional volleyball in town. That's super exciting. And, it just keeps growing. And now you have the pockets. You even mentioned Midtown or... there's all these little subgroups. And sure, there's a trolley coming, and I feel really bad for all the businesses that are being impacted by it because I can't imagine. We've had our street torn out for a couple months, and some of these guys have been, shut down for quite a while. But I think the trolley, eventually, when it gets done, will probably be a good thing too. It just keeps developing. It's a much better city.
I had a follow-up question with that. Did I lose that? Once it comes back, I'll ask you.
Yeah, let me know.
How do you define the role of Sozo Coffeehouse in the Omaha community?
I see it as a lighthouse. We had a women's march come out of here a number of years ago. It's that place where people can go, and I've appreciated seeing political figures on both sides of everything, and they may have a little Hello Kitty sticker because that's one of our drinks, and I think it's needed. I think it's something we need more of, and I guess I'm hoping that it helps to unify people and not divide people. I think we need to see the walls come down. We can agree and disagree, and it shouldn't mean that we have to hate anyone. But I think we need more places. And I personally, if anybody's wants to start something, I'm always trying to help people start things. I just want to be a resource to people who want to make the world a better place. So,
my follow-up question that came to mind. You talked about how Omaha has grown in development. I meant to ask, are you from Nebraska?
I'm not. I was born in Wisconsin. I moved all over the United States because my dad was moving all the time. So, Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, all sorts of different places. But after college, I got a phone call in college from the company that I worked for, Hormel, and they said, "Hey, we got a job in Omaha." And I put my phone down, I asked my roommate, I said, "Where's Omaha?" And he said, "Oh, it's in Texas." And I was like, "Oh, cool." So I accepted a job thinking I was moving to Texas, got off the phone, and one of my other, guys came by, and he's like, "What's going on?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to Omaha." And he's like Mutual of Omaha? And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I've heard of that." And he goes, "Well, that's in Nebraska." And I was like, "Was that a state?" I mean, I was in Chicago, so, I should have known. I drove through the state, but Nebraska was not on my radar. The first thing I thought when I came here was, how soon can I leave? But, man, it's really become home. I love the community, love the people. So
I'm from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
I was Naperville area.
That was me too.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that outside of the interview. So it's just I'm in the same boat as you. I moved here in 2017. My dad got a new job, and his whole side of the family is from central Nebraska. Okay. So I'm familiar with Nebraska, but same thing as you. What is there to do in Nebraska? I'm like, well, you got the zoo, you got Nebraska football games, and you got the College World Series for 2 weeks.
Right.
And then I'm going to add that for me, it'll be that fourth edition is you got the airport so you can get out of here. Yeah. I like that. So just you brought up development. I just want to say I agree with that. Coming from, I was raised in Chicago practically. Dad worked in the city, been there all the time, and Not saying Omaha is turning to Chicago whatsoever. We only have 3 skyscrapers.
Yeah.
But it is growing. I will agree with you with that. And that's why I do this podcast, so I can get those newer businesses or older businesses, get them on the radar and just show the world how good Nebraska really is.
Yeah.
So a little off track there.
Yeah.
But what trials did you personally face while starting or running the coffee house, and how did you overcome them? I know you kind of talked about it with like the over 3,500 hours of the volunteer hours. Is there anything during that time that you had to overcome or after?
Yeah. In order to keep it a safe place, it's always been difficult. I think I told you, I just got married 5 years ago, and it radically transformed my life. When you're a single guy in ministry, it's far more challenging, I think. And I think maybe there was a question of like, why do it, so I definitely went over some hurdles. It's kind of those moments. I remember one guy coming in at one point, and he said, the Pope is Muslim. And I was like, oh, okay. And he had these tracts, and he's handing them out, and he's just very radical. And I'm just like going, oh.
Was this in here?
It was here. And I was just like, oh, dude, like, I'm not sure where you're getting this from. And he like pulls it up. Of course, on the internet, everything is true, right? So he pulls it up and he shows me a website, and sure enough, the Pope had kissed a Quran and bowed down to it, and and I'm like, oh, So it's moments like that where I'm going like, okay, I got to step in and try to get a fuller picture of this. And the Pope, I guess, and even though I'm not Catholic, I defend when I want truth.
Yes.
So I look into it, and I'm like, oh, there was some Muslims who came and gave a really nice Quran to the Pope, and the Pope pretty much kisses everything, right? I mean, he's pretty known for kissing babies, and so he thanked them for the gift, and he bowed to thank them, and then he kissed it, and I guess that's what, a thank you type of thing.
Yeah.
So it was a good notion. It didn't make him Muslim, and it did, so so in that situation, that's that. Sorry.
No, you're all good.
That's where, I have to maybe step in and say, sorry, this probably isn't the right place for you. Oh, and that person just lit me up, and those are the hard moments. People have an agenda, or maybe you're not going along with what they're trying to promote, and it'd be a lot easier to just be a coffee shop where you just never had an opinion. But when you get involved in people's lives, over the years, I had 100 and some guys that lived with me when I was single, and a lot of those guys were people I met here at Sozo. Maybe they were homeless, maybe they were getting out of a recovery program, and so they lived with me. Sometimes that went well, sometimes it didn't go well, and so if you can stay out of people's lives, like, life is a lot less dramatic. And just coffee itself, there's not a lot of big issues. But I suppose coming with those negatives is the joy of seeing so many people's lives transformed. And I've got people who have come out of here that are in the missions field. And David, who helped us start, works with Indigenous people in Canada still today. I've got a missionary at our house right now, just came back from Spain, and she came out of our Bible studies and works with women who have been abused in Spain. So we have great stories of things as much as there's hardships.
What's one challenge or goal you're currently pursuing with the coffee house?
For me, because it's not a business, even though there's a business element, I want to find the next generation of leadership. Because for me, when I leave, I don't get to take anything with me. It's not mine. And so I want to see the next generation come in and have a vision for where they can take this, whether it's the coffee side of things. I think if somebody had a great vision for it, they could probably duplicate the efforts here, and it's probably needed in many, many places. So that's a big thing of mine, or whether it's the ministry itself. I'd love to see the next generation step in.
How do you curate the atmosphere at Sozo to make it a favorite spot for studying and hanging out?
Man, that goes to my barista team. They are fabulous. Again, and that's the interesting part. Our team is mixed all kinds of different people, backgrounds, beliefs, and stuff like that. They all just know that their goal is to make it a safe place, and they do a fabulous job of it. They're always trying to meet the customer's needs, whether it's the music that's played in the background or the furniture, even though sometimes I roll my eyes at some of the furniture they pick. It's a younger generation. They have new ideas, and I just go like, you guys go for it, because they've made it so comfortable. The little, cubbies where people can gather and talk aren't just our small group rooms. There's couch sets everywhere. So I think it's our coffee team that really makes that happen.
Sozo is open till late, practically every day except Tuesdays, which is the Bible studies. So for those who are listening and don't know what the hours here, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, you guys close at 10 p.m. And then Friday, Saturday, you guys close at midnight, which is very unheard of, as we were kind of talking about earlier, like who gets coffee at midnight. But I guess people do. So
they do.
How did that idea come up when you were discussing hours of staying open?
When you're in that college, 18 to 35, and you're single, not a lot of college students get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and decide they're going to head into and get their homework done. They're usually like staying out till 10, 11. They go out and have a good time, and then they go home and study, right? So I think we just kind of were going, let's go with the people that we're trying to reach. And this is why even today, we don't open till 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, for a coffee shop, that's kind of awkward. And you can be here in the morning, and it's pretty quiet. But as you get going at night, the 65,000 college students that are all within 5 miles from us start pouring in. Summertime it's a little bit slower, but during the school year, all these rooms, they're $2 to rent. They all get rented for almost every hour, and people are in here studying, doing school projects. So, yeah.
So with that being said, with you guys being with Sozo Coffeehouse being late or open so late, how does the coffee house on weekends, from a safety and community perspective, how does the coffee house handle that?
Yes. I can't give you all our secrets.
No worries.
Only because then people would know how our team exits and enters and does those type of things. But I would say we always have 2 people on for sure. We definitely have a security system. We have protocols. Because we've had the awkward moment where I'm in church on Sunday and I get an alarm going off that says that someone's in the building. And so, we've stepped up our motion detectors, all of those things, so that we kind of know who's where. And, of course, we have cameras in every room. One of the things that I love about Sozo is if you looked around us, yes, there's a camera in every room, the glass doors. Even for me, whether having been single or being married as a married person, if I'm going to meet with somebody, I just want a safe place to do that sort of thing. Anybody can look in, see what's happening in this room. You can check the cameras to see what's going on. I think that adds to the element of security for our team, especially when it gets a little later at night, and some of the events that are going on. We definitely want our team safe. And they are mostly females on our staff, of course, and so that ups for me, being a dad of a daughter. I want to make sure that they're doing okay. And
do you have any quick stories of like a late night story from a customer that a barista told you that happened recently?
Oh, okay. So I want to make sure everybody always understands. I have a lot of stories that are on the rougher side of things. 98% of the people that walk in this door are amazing college students, are probably going to be doctors, lawyers, business people, artists, all sorts of things. But we definitely get the unique individuals that come in. I got a call one day that was like, "Hey, Chad, check the cameras on room such and such." And I was like, "Why? What's going on?" And it's like, "Well, somebody had come in and they, I guess, had to use the restroom, number 2, and decided to just use their hand and dump it in our trash can." So those are like, you're sitting there going, you got to be kidding. What? I mean, and this wasn't a homeless person. This was just a unique individual. So once in a while we get these weird stories where you're just going like, what are people thinking? And we had the police come down and, they did an investigation and got photos. And I mean, it was just like, there's some weird stuff sometimes. There is, I don't think people understand the mental health concerns that are going on. around us, it can be challenging.
I never thought I would hear a story like that, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of common in like retail stores, especially, or just like, like especially on weekends, you'll hear like I'll have friends that work in retail. They'll tell me crazy stories like, "Oh, this happened Saturday night." It's like you wouldn't believe it. Like, there's no way that's such a fake story, but it's true.
Yes.
So, but no, it's
I could write books on some of the stories
Jeez.
that have happened over the years for sure.
if you could change one thing about Omaha's coffee or small business ecosystem, what would it be? I can repeat that real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
If you could change one thing about Omaha's coffee or small business ecosystem, what would it be?
I think there's some of this that's changing already, but I think there's more unity and working together. We have other coffee shops that are opened around us over the years, and I don't see a sense of competition. I suppose maybe because for us it's not about the economics of things, but I really enjoy working with the table up the road here, and that's somebody that actually came out of Sozo. They were meeting here and then planted their own coffee/ministry, and I don't see them as competition. I see them as working for the same goals. There's plenty of people drinking coffee. There's no real need for us to, go after each other, and I think we get a lot more done. On one of my prayer walks just recently, we stopped at the police station. We're praying for our police department for safety, but also for wisdom and how they handle things. And there was a girl that was there that was coming out of trafficking. She had literally gone into the police department, filed some reports, and came back out. And she's like, I don't know where to go now. What do I do? I'm coming out of trafficking, and I filed a report, but where do I go to get resources, and what do I do? And I'm like, why don't you walk with us for a couple blocks, and I'm going to introduce you to somebody that works with us, and they can help you get some resources. And sure enough, they walked down to the table with us, and we let this girl connect there while we finished our walk, and she got the resources that she needed to get on the track to healing. So,
Was that recently?
yes, yep, yeah, that was about 3 weeks ago.
How would you describe Sozo's culture in 3 words?
I would say, oh boy, it's hard to put the words into it. I mean, obviously safe would have to be one word. Open and yet grounded might be it. I do want people to understand is I personally am very solid on biblical truth. So it's not that we're not grounded. It doesn't mean in a Bible study I can't have people with difference of opinions and I can't be respectful to them. But it doesn't mean that I'm, not grounded. I am pretty conservative in the big picture of things, but I have lots of friends that aren't. But that doesn't mean we're not grounded. So, yeah, probably those 3.
How do you foster inclusion? So different groups such as kids who come here to study, nonprofits or companies that come here for meetings or conferences and rent out your conference rooms. How do you have like those different types of groups feel like they're at home? That's probably more like the barista team too.
That really is the barista team, but it is, and this is what I like about it. If we were a rec center and then a 16-year-old came in, they would they'd be a little rougher on things, but we're not a rec center. We're an adult establishment, and so even though we may have 16-year-olds who come in from local high schools and play pool at times, we expect them to be adults. In order for it to be a safe place, everybody has to be respectful of each other, and our team manages that very nicely. So you can have, and sometimes we have to call people out on how loud they're being, or maybe the language they're using, or something. But we don't usually even have to do that. The culture here sort of does it itself. Like people come in, it's a nice place. You're playing on really nice pool tables, and so it just ups, I think, what people their expectations of themselves. I think it raises it. So
now we're moving on to more of that fun section I was talking about earlier, so just got some fun questions I want to ask.
Okay.
Want to hear your answer. So, coffee or tea?
I'd go with tea.
And then, as you said earlier, you're not a big coffee guy, so
I'm learning to be more of a coffee. My wife makes coffee every morning, so I got to pick her some beans today and get her home.
are you more of an early bird or a night owl?
I'm totally a night owl. Yes.
Do you come here to hang out or do some work like late at night?
No, I probably am here more during the day, but I am definitely a night owl.
What's your go-to comfort drink and food item after a long day? When I say food item and drink, I mean like here.
It is okay. So I say I don't like coffee, but we have such a good cold brew with a cold foam that's probably my go-to. I mean, if there's anything that gives me energy, that over even a energy drink, hands down, our cold brew is really good. So I'm liking it more these days.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah, that's right.
What's been the most favorite drink most recently when it comes to like reviews and customers saying like, hey, this is the best drink you have?
Oh gosh, right now they've got like a shark drink out there, but I would always go to the Hello Kitty, which is a signature drink. You know, it's fun to see big construction guys walk in and order a drink that comes with whipped topping and some sprinkles and a sticker. You know, and it's that's always my favorite.
What's
one.
in the Hello Kitty?
Well, it's got hazelnut and caramel, a little vanilla, and so it's a little recipe of ours.
Do you guys do like limited edition or seasonal drinks?
Oh, they have all kinds of them, yes. And if I knew all of them, I would be a much better barista, but I try to stay out of that. That is, again, I would give all the credit to them. You can take a look at our board. They have new drinks all the time and drinks that others just don't have. And what's fun is we even do some mocktails because we do some events that are here with some groups that are recovering. And so they've brought in some drinks, and we've kept a few of those around. So people sometimes are like, oh, do you want to meet for coffee? Well, I don't really drink coffee. And I'm like, then I know a perfect place. Because we have, I think we did a calculation, 1.2 trillion different options of drinks. If you look at our menu and all of the flavors, all
Trillion?
of the options. Yes.
With a T.
With a T. So the mixtures, I mean, you can make all kinds of crazy stuff. And if you don't like coffee, not a big deal. We got tea. You don't like tea, we got smoothies. You don't like smoothies, we've got, it's pretty much anything but alcohol. We can make it.
I meant to ask this earlier. So you said like in the summertime is like your kind of like your quiet season because students are not in college anymore. They're
Right.
how do I word this? So like what you just said with the summer being like the slow season, I always wonder about the winter when it's like 10 degrees and is there like a big difference between like winter season, spring season, fall season, or like after summer?
Yeah, I mean, the colder it is, the better off I think we are. Hot coffee is always great, some hot chocolate, whatever it might be. And it's the college students, which is what we've built everything around, is really trying to be that resource. I love some of the things we do, like we do free waffles. So there's free food for like 2 weeks because all the colleges and universities have different schedules for their finals. But during finals weeks, we'll sometimes stay open later and we'll feed them free food. Because again, we're here to reach them, to serve them, and so it's a huge event. There's another fun event too, if I can tell you. A little plug is if anybody's around in October, one of the crazy parts about Sozo is we become the biggest pancake and bacon house in I think in Nebraska. Last year we fed 500 people, but we did it between the hours of midnight and 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's an outreach that we do Halloween weekend, where what we're trying to do is, again, safety. We're trying to help people who are out in the bar communities around us get home safe, because sometimes their outfits that they're wearing, they might drink a little extra that night. And we want to make sure people get home safe. So we go out on the streets and to some of our local bars, and we'll just reach people and say, come on, follow us several blocks down dark streets into a basement and have some free food from random people, strangers. And people do. 500 people came in last year, and we gave out pancakes for free, bacon for free, coffee for free. and we help people get Ubers home, get safely home, and again, that it's those type of things that I think make us a little bit unique.
How long has that been, that pancake thing during Halloween week or weekend? How long has that been going on?
We've been doing it probably since the beginning. I mean, it started with 70 people, and then it went to 100 and some. And last year, I mean, we opened the doors at midnight, and there was already a line out the door. It was pretty crazy.
I read on your website online, it was like the first or second paragraph, the goal. I wrote this word for word. I'm going to quote it right here. The goal here is create a safe community where young adults could build friendships, develop leadership skills, gain life experience, and find opportunities to impact the world around them. Do you believe the goal has been completed, or is there still work to do?
I think there's always work to do. There's always that next generation, and no, that work is never complete. But
got it. What's next for Sozo Coffeehouse? Any upcoming changes or expansions?
No, I am definitely at that spot in life where I want to be doing ministry, and I want to see Sozo go on without me, and where I can just invest in the next generation. I get a chance to meet every day with young adults and help them with the financial struggles that they're walking through, or maybe their life decisions, relationship things. My wife and I have a wonderful relationship, and it's one of those examples to be able to share with others. I want to focus my time on those things. So, sometimes ministry is not shouldn't be glorified. I always tell people, don't start a ministry. Make sure God has called you to do it. I wouldn't recommend it. It's hard. It's challenging, and even a coffee shop. Even though it's not my business. I get called when the toilet's plugged, right? I don't just get called when there's a ministry opportunity. I get those too, where it's like, hey, there's somebody in here and they're crying on a couch. Chad, can you come down and and speak to them and help them find resources? And I was like, yes, that's what I want to get called for. But I also get called when there's a leaking pipe or something else too, and that's not what I want to be doing.
What advice would you give to someone in Nebraska who wants to follow your footsteps? Or in other words, wants to do the same exact thing you're doing with either starting a ministry, a coffee house, or both at the same time?
Sure. I was talking to some young professionals last night in our Bible studies. Afterwards, we were hanging out talking, and I was like, man, find mentors. Find people who have gone before you, and so that you can learn from their mistakes. I think there's plenty of people probably out there who would love to help you make good decisions, whether that's in your business life or whether that's in your personal life. Let people speak in to avoid the downfalls. There's lots of things that I probably would have, I can't think of a lot, but there's definitely things in my personal life that I would have done differently. Would I have done things differently in the coffee world? Yeah, probably. If somebody had warned me ahead of time that these are some things to think about.
There's one more picture over there. Is that just another picture of what it used to look like?
That's the old freezers, yeah.
Okay.
So you can just kind of imagine.
So I don't think the camera could get this perfectly. I'll try to take a picture of these pictures and
Yeah, that could work.
Put them on the video interview. So this is like what this room would look like.
Right.
If you didn't do anything, add the couches.
And some of the freezers were a little bit bigger that we would actually do studies in.
Okay.
That it was pretty rough down here. So there was a lot of people who put a lot of love in. If I can say, if I could give a message out to the Christian community.
Please do.
Well, there's two things I would say. One, I'd love a church to come and use our space. We have all different types of people who use our space, but I would love to see a church. There's been churches that have tried to come to the old market, and it's just a difficult ground. But we need the gospel down here, and I think there needs to be a community that's for the family elements that are surrounding this old market. You're seeing more and more families start to come down with the park systems. And where our church is going, they all go west because that's honestly where the money's at. Okay? Sure, there's people and families, but it's the economics of thing. And I think we need to be gospel-centered, and we need some things down here. But the other side of things is, I always tell people, Sozo is ultimately, if your church on Sunday morning has a little coffee bar and they're serving some free coffee, what if more churches were developed and built like this, where they just said, why don't we just leave our doors open? Instead of just being open 2 hours for our congregation on Wednesday and Sunday, what if our churches were built in a way that the community hung out at the church during the week. And they didn't think about it as a church. They just thought of it as, of course we go over there and we hang out, and that's where our birthday party is going to be, and that's what we use. I think the kingdom needs to start reallocating its resources so that they can actually be in the lives of the lost people around them and be a resource to them. So maybe more churches need to leave their doors open and keep their coffee running.
If people want to learn more about the coffee house and the events that are upcoming, or even like the ministry events that are upcoming, either in the coffee house or outside the coffee house, where can they go online for that?
Well, you can definitely go to, look us up on social media platforms. We're out there. Sozo Coffeehouse, you can go directly to that online, and you can book rooms, you can book pool tables, you can find the link to the ministry, which then will help you with those things. And you can send an email, shoot a text. I'll give you guys that information too.
Chad, you're a great speaker and you're a great storyteller. I appreciate your time with me on this podcast interview. Thank you for sharing all that with me.
Definitely. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. And guys, thank you for listening and watching.